Hello guys, and welcome back to this new video. In today's video, I'm going to show you something really great, and it's really important. So it mixes and brings together two of the most important things in today's era, in today's technology, which is AI and Spring, the Spring Boot framework. And today I will show you and I will guide you step by step how you can implement an AI agent that can perform or fetch data, aggregate everything together and communicate with an LLM and brings you the results. Also, we will implement a nicely looking dashboard that will display the different results. So this application, to be honest, is one of the best that I implemented so far. So we will see how this AI agent looks like, what is the system architecture for this AI agent, how it works, and the most important part, we will implement it from scratch and step by step. And of course, and as always, I will show you how to do it step by step without skipping any part of it. So before we start, I would like to invite you, if you are not yet subscribed to my channel, just go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And also don't forget to smash that thumbs up button. This helps me a lot and helps the video reach more and more people. And of course, I would like to ask you for one last favor. Share this video with your friends so we spread the knowledge together. Before we start, let me leave you with this nice demo about the application that we will build, and I wish you happy coding. Alright, so here our AI research agent. So here we have the dashboard, we have the different component, we can see how many posts scraped, the active trends when the last analysis was, just now by default if we have nothing, how many platforms we support, how many Reddit posts, Hacker News, product hands, and also the top trends that we have in here. We see here also the trends, the scrape status, and we can scrape individually the different platforms, or we can run the full cycle. Also from the dashboard, we have here the run research cycle. So I'm going to click on it and start the scraping process. And this is gonna take some time because, as I already mentioned before, when we scrape Hacker News, and it takes a little bit time. So we will wait for it, and then we will see the output or the results of our application. So let's just wait for it. All right, so now the research is done, and here are the results. So it took some time, but now we see the final results. And as you can see, we scraped 153 posts and we have 8 active trends. And from Reddit, we got 125, from Hacker News 28, and from Product Hunt, we got 0 posts. And here, as you can see, we have the top trends, the top 8 trends that we see in here. So for example, the first one is AI-driven job displacement and reskilling. If we click on it, it will take us to the summary and we can see the score. So the trending signal is 92%, and we have the summary and why it is trending. And we see here that we have the related post IDs. Also, if we go to scrape status, we can see all the scraping statuses from the different platforms, or we can also filter them by platform like Reddit, Hacker News, or Product Hunt, which is 0 for now, as we saw before. Also, if we go to trends, we can filter the trends by platform. So what are the trends from Reddit? And we can see these are all from Reddit. For example, from Hacker News, we have only one, which is among the top one. And this was scraped 3 minutes ago. And here we see that we found 3 related topics. And for example, Product Hunt, we have nothing. So for example, if we display all, we can also sort them by trending score or the most recent, or also like the mention count. So for example, this one has the score of 88% and it was mentioned 7 times. This one is 92%, it was mentioned 6 times, and so forth. So for example, if we order by trending score, we will see it in this way. If we go back to the dashboard, we can run another trending cycle, or also, so for example, here we see that Reddit, we have 125. If we click on it, it will navigate us to the trends, and we see that, and also automatically here, it will be selected Reddit, like the platform. And also, if we go to scrape status, we can run the full cycle from here, or only, for example, I want to scrape Reddit. So this will start the Reddit scraping once again. And if we get new posts, we will see them in the dashboard, or also the list will be displayed in here, and we will see that it was scraped, for example, like 1 minute ago. So I will just give it some time to finish scraping, because it is running, and I see the logs in the backend application in the console. So it's scraping, and then once it is done, we can go to the dashboard and see if we have new posts from Reddit or not. So far, like from what I see from the logs, all of them are zero posts. So I think it will not change, or the value, it will stay always as 125. All right. So if we go back here to the dashboard, we can see, as I mentioned, it's still 125. So yeah, this is our application, and this is what we implement. And in the backend, as I explained before, we have our agent running. So we scrape the data from the different platforms or from the different data sources. And for now, we only focused on Reddit, Hacker News, and Product Hunt. And then we send all this information to an LLM. And for that, we used Anthropic, or an LLM or a model from Anthropic. And then we display all the information in this nicely looking dashboard. All right, so that was it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned from it. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you're not part of the channel. This really helps me a lot. And thank you so much. See you in the next one. All right, so let's start first by understanding our AI agent system architecture. So everything will start from the middle in here, our Spring Boot backend. And Spring Boot is already decomposed into different parts or different modules. So we have the platform scraper or scraping orchestrator, research scheduler, trending service, and the REST API. And of course, it will communicate with our Postgres database. So here, what do we have? Let's start from the middle in here. So we have our research scheduler. So it's a cron job that will be triggered every 3 hours, for example. Like you can define it the way you want. You can trigger it every minute, every hour, every 12 minutes, and so forth. And this, what it will do, it will fetch data from our data sources like Reddit, Hacker News, Product Hunt. From Reddit, for example, we will use the different channels like technology, artificials, machine learning, startups, and so forth. You can define as many as you want, and I will show you how you can configure it and make it really configurable and extendable application. Then we will use Hacker News, and we will use their Firebase API to scrape, for example, the top 30 stories, or you can configure more, for example. So I will show you everything step by step. And then we have Product Hunt. So we will scrape their homepage to fetch, for example, the top 20 products. There is something important in here. Scraping means that we will send thousands or like many requests to these data sources. But the problem when doing data scraping, or where we want to scrape data, we will get blocked. So for that, we will need something that helps us. So we need to set up a proxy in between. So the Spring Boot backend should use a proxy to scrape data from the different data sources. And why we need this proxy? Because the proxy provides some rotating residential proxies, and the one that we will use, it provides more than 45 million residential proxies around more than 220 countries for geotargeting. And we have also the option of auto IP rotation. So we can have a new IP address per request. So for example, if you want to scrape the top 20 or the top 30 or the top 100 Reddits from Reddit, so each request will be executed with a different IP address. So in this way, Reddit will never find out that there is a bot or an agent behind trying to scrape data. Otherwise, it will be blocked. So that's why we need the proxy right here. And then let's go back to the Spring Boot part. And here, after fetching the data or starting the scheduled job, we will call a scraping orchestrator. And the scraping orchestrator, it will scrape each platform using JSoup and Jackson. JSoup for when we scrape, for example, Product Hunt, because we are dealing with HTML elements, and Jackson because here, for example, Reddit and Hacker News, we can use their APIs, and here Firebase API, we can get the JSON data from there. Once we scrape the data, we will persist them to PostgreSQL to our database. For example, we will have scraped post, trend analysis, and trend topics. So these two tables right here, we will have our AI brain, like the brain of our application, that will do all the analysis. So here we will use an LLM analysis service, for example, and we will use Claude from Anthropic, or you can use ChatGPT, whatever, like you can use any model you want. Like the switching from one to another is really smooth and simple. You can also use multiple of them. All right, so what will happen in here? So we will send the raw posts. So like it will be a batch of 50 or 100. We will send it to the LLM. The LLM will do the trending identification, topic categorization, and provide us with a trend scoring from 0 to 1. And then it will return a structured trends in a JSON format. So like we will provide the format of that JSON that we want. After getting this one, of course, we will use our trending services and our repositories to persist the data into the different tables like trend analysis, trend topics, and so on and so forth. And then using our REST APIs, we will be able to fetch this data. So we will be able to fetch different trends, the different scraped data, and so forth. And all that will be behind our Angular front-end application. So in Angular, we will have mainly 3 or more components, of course. So we will have a dashboard, we will have some stats, top trends, platform breakdowns, and so on and so forth. And we will have Trend Explorer, like filter by category, by platform, by score. And of course, we will have a scraping status. And of course, we will be able to trigger manually the scraping. So for example, instead of waiting 3 hours or 12 hours or whatever, we can also trigger it manually from the front end. All right. And also we can scrape only a specific platform. So for example, here we have 3 platforms and they only want to scrape or to get the data from Reddit. So I can only scrape Reddit, and this will go through the flow. So when I click on, for example, like scrape Reddit, the backend will call our scraping orchestrator, and then it will use the proxy layer or the proxy to fetch the data from Reddit, send it to the AI brain through our agent, and then save the data to the database, and finally display it in the front end. So here, let's have a look on, quick look on the data flow that I mentioned in here. So as I mentioned, first we will scrape the platforms via rotating proxies, and then parse a duplicate post in Spring Boot, send batch to Claude for analysis, store the post plus trends in PostgreSQL, and then serve insights via REST to the Angular dashboard. All right. So as I mentioned in here, so the cycle runs automatically every 3 hours, or it can be manually triggered from the dashboard. So this is the architecture of our AI agent that we will implement step by step. Now we can move to the next step and start defining the different components. So we will start with the basics, like creating the models, the repositories, defining the services, and then I will show you how you can configure the proxy, and of course how you can configure and connect to Claude, for example, or ChatGPT or whatever. So like it really depends on the model or the solution that you, or the LLM to be specific. It depends on the LLM you want to use, and then like everything is going to be easy and smooth. So now let's move on to the next part. All right, so now let's go ahead and create the project. So I will call it, for example, AI or Spring Boot AI Research Agent. So I will call it Spring Boot AI Research Agent. All right, so it will be a Maven project. So the artifact, we can call it, for example, only AI Search Agent. And here for the package name, let's call it Search Agent or Agent. You can call it whatever. So it really depends. It depends on you. So I will call it just AI Agent to be simple. So the next, we will of course need our Spring Web. We will need our Spring Data JPA. We will need Lombok, and we will need PostgreSQL. So PostgreSQL driver to process the data. And then we will add also, OKHTTP and JSoup. I think we do not have them here. Yeah, we have JSoup, so we can add JSoup, but let's add it manually later on. So here, all I need to do is to create the project, and here we go. So the first thing, before moving to the next part, I will simply rename this one and use YAML representation. You always ask me this in the comments, so it's just a preference. You can use properties, so it's also like it's completely the same, but for me, I just personally prefer using YAML representation because it's easier for me to read. All right, so now we have the project. Now let's move on and start configuring adding the properties, connecting to the database, and so on and so forth. So like we will add the basic configuration that we already know, and I showed it multiple times on different videos. So like I will not waste a lot of your time. I will just copy paste, go through it, and then we will move on to the most important parts. All right, so now I will just paste this configuration. Like it's really basic. So here we have our database. We connect to our for example our database, let's call it AI research agent, username Postgres and password Postgres, and here like basic GPA configuration. Also I will add something in here. So here I will add a config, and then I will import, or I want to import a configuration or the .env file, not a config server, but I want to import the file. So here, sorry, not application, but let's call it .env, or optionally .properties. All right. So here, what does this mean? This means that in our, or like on the SRC level in here, what I can do is to right click and create a .env file. And here, to create this .env file, the first thing that you need to do is to add this .env to the git ignore, because this is not something that you should synchronize or push to your production. All right. So this is the first step. And then from here, how can I define, for example, this one? So here, let's say, for example, I want to have username. So I will create a variable called db username, for example, and I will call it Postgres. And the same, I will create, for example, a db password equals Postgres. So let me add a D in here and fix this one. All right, so now how can I use this? Simply dollar and then, for example, db username. And here this is a default value in case we are not able to find or to load the .env file. All right. Also, we can remove it just to make sure that we are correctly reading the value from the .env. All right. In the same way, for example, you can here define the db password. Otherwise, it will be Postgres. All right. So like this is how, like in the future, when we are recording or we are implementing this application, when you see me using this notation, you should automatically know that I'm loading everything from the .env we have right here. And also, like, since we are talking about Git and not pushing this one, so all you need to do is to create a .env.example. All right. And this one you can push. And here it contains the signature, or it contains the placeholders that we have. So here, for example, let's call this one db username. And here, for example, db password. So here, maybe we can say your underscore. So your db username and your db password. So when you synchronize this .env.example, the one who will run the code or will download it or like will check it out from Git or from GitHub and so on and so forth. So he will automatically knows that he needs to create a .env file. And of course you can mention that in the README file just to explain how you can set up the project. So here that he will know automatically that he needs to replace the db username with the correct value in the .env file. All right, so like this is our basic configuration. And then what we will do, simply we will start creating the different models like entities, the basic repositories and services and so forth. And then every time we need something or we need a method, we will add it in the repository and in the services. So like what we will create for now, you can consider it as the skeleton or the basic skeleton of our application. All right, so let's first, as I mentioned, let's start by creating the different entities that we have. So this one, I will just rename this file and I will simply call it agent application. Instead of this long name, I will simply call it agent application. That will rename also the test class. All right, so in here under AI agent, I will create a first class under a model package and I will call it scraped posts. So scraped post, not posts, like we use single singular names for classes, and then of course the table, it will be plural. So scraped post, and in here all I need to do, simply I will add some getter setter annotation from Lombok. Of course we will add required args constructor, no args constructor, the builder annotation, and of course we will need to add the entity annotation and the table annotation. So table annotation, first I will just give it a name, and then I will add some properties later on. So I will call it scraped posts. All right, so for builder we need the all args constructor. All right, so let's start by adding some data or some fields to our entity. So first I will start with a private long ID. So this will be the ID of my entity or of my table. And here, of course, I need the ID annotation. And of course, we need the generated value. And let's give it identity, or like strategy identity. Then what do we have? First, we have a private string. So not a string, but we will use enum platform. Let's call it platform. So first I will just go ahead and create an enum platform. And for the platform, simply I will add the 3 platforms that I already mentioned in the system, or the system architecture or the system design. So let's create Reddit and Hacker News, and finally product hunt. All right, so this is our platform. Then we just need to give it the enumerated annotation, because it's an enum enumerated annotation using the string. And let's say, for example, also a colon and nullable false. I don't want the platform to be null, because this will help me, or this will give me the information if the scraping passed correctly or not. All right, so here let's have also a private string external ID. So this external ID is simply the ID of the scraped data. All right, I will explain it later on when we implement that one. So let's also give it the colon annotation, and let's make sure that it's not nullable. And then we will have a private string, so a private string title. And for the title in here also, let's give it the colon annotation. It should not be nullable. And for example, for the length, let's increase this one to 1024 characters. All right, because like 255 is a bit short. And then we have a private string content as well. I don't know how IntelliJ is reading my mind, but let's make it this way. So for the content, it might be null. All right, maybe we can scrape something from the title, but the content is null. So here we will not use length, but we will use colon definition, and we will use text, because the content might be also super long. And then we'll have a private string URL. So like the URL that we use to scrape the data for that specific post. And let's give it also the colon annotation, and let's give it a length of 2048 characters. All right, and then so here a private string, if you want to, an author, so like who wrote that post. And we need a private end, so it will be a score. So like this will be the score from 0 to 1, or like the score that we have. And also we will have private int, like comment count. How many comments does this post have? And also here we will use a private string. So let's call it subreddit. So this is only specific for Reddit, all right? Like, because for example, we will scrape technology, artificial intelligence, and so on and so forth. And this is like in Reddit, it's called a subreddit. All right, so let's add a colon in here, and let's say that the length maybe 512 is enough. And then, so if you want to, we can keep trace. Just this one is only for you to make sure that the proxy is correctly used. And here we can add, for example, a private string proxy IP used. So let's call it proxy IP used, like the IP that we use to scrape that data. And I will add, for example, like a local date time scraped at, or posted at, and scraped at. So I will add also a local date time, and here let's say posted posted at, like the date of the post, just because, for example, I want to check everything. I want to check, for example, all the posts that were scraped, or all the posts that were posted in a specific date, for example. Here I will add a pre-persist, so a pre-persist annotation, and here it will be a public void, let's call it pre-persist, and simply I would like to set the script at, I will just set it to local datetime.now. I don't want to set it manually later on. So this is our first model. So the second one, we will have the trend analysis. All right, so like this is like the analysis of the trend, and we also have another table or another entity, which is the trend topic. But before moving to that, I want to show you something. I think it's nice because every time I want to show you something new. So here, when we have the table, we can also add unique constraints. All right, so we can add, for example, here what do we have? We have the platform and the external ID. We want to make sure that we do not scrape or persist the same post 2 times or multiple times. And this, for example, from Reddit with the external ID equals 1, both of them, I need to make sure that I do not have a duplicate entry for that. So it's easy to define it directly on the database, but also we can add a unique constraints in here. So let me maybe break the line, and I can have unique constraints, and here we can use the unique constraint annotation, and here I can define the column names. I don't know, like is IntelliJ listening to me or what? All right, so here we have, or we want to apply a unique constraint on both columns, platform and external ID. So if I insert the first time platform Reddit and external ID 1, and then if I want to insert a second time, even with different title, content, and so on and so forth, but the same platform Reddit and the same external ID, this should not pass, and I should get an error when I try to persist this line. All right, so this is really important, and as I mentioned, every time I would like to show you something new. So today we learned the unique constraints, and also how you can define it. But if you're using, for example, Flyway just for database migration, don't forget to add this constraint as well. All right, so now let's create the second one, which is, let's call it our trend analysis. So trend analysis. So this will be the result of the trending analysis from the LLM. So I will copy everything, and then I can remove the unique constraints because we do not need this one. So here I only need the table with the name. I can remove this part, and here let's call it trend underscore analysis. And I will rename this class. So this name is correct. All right, so here I will add like few information like private long ID, and of course I need the ID annotation and the generated value annotation. And I can use the strategy identity. This works for me. Also, you can use strings, you can use whatever you want. All right, so here what do we have? For the trending analysis, we have like few information. So first I will have a private string, like the row analysis. So the row analysis. So this row analysis is like the result that I will receive. All right, so this is what I mean with that. So I will add a colon, and here I will just specify the colon definition as text, and of course it should not be nullable. All right, otherwise this means something went wrong with the LLM. And then I will have another private platform. So like the analysis was done for which platform, and this will be the platform, and of course I will have enumerated. Just enumerated, and of course I want enumeration string. All right, so here I will have a private int, so posts analysis. So posts analysis, so like how many posts did I analyze, and finally I will have a private local datetime analyzed at. And here we need, of course, the pre-persist annotation, and with the pre-persist, and I will just automatically set up or define the analyzed at date. All right, so the next one, we have the trend topic. So we have the entity trend topic. So I will create, or I can just duplicate this one. So I will copy paste it and I will call it trend topic. I'm feeling a bit lazy because all I just didn't want to rewrite the ID multiple times. Anyways, so here I will call this one trend topics and I will have the ID and I can remove the rest. So, and then I will define the different columns or fields that I need. So here we have a string. First, like we will start with the string topic. So what is the trending topic? And for this one, I will add the annotation colon and nullable false, and I will add a length, for example, 512 should be fine for me. And then private string summary. So summary, let me fix the typo, and here private. All right, so like this will be the summary, and since the summary it might be long, so I will add the colon definition as text. And then we have the reasoning, so private string reasoning. So this is the reasoning from the LLM, and of course a colon and colon definition text. So then we will have a private string category. So here the category, it would be, for example, like SAS, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so forth. And then we will have a private int, the mention count. So like how many times this was mentioned. And then we will have a private double. So private double, and this will be the score. All right. So this will be the score of that specific trend. Well, not finally, but I will have a private platform. This will be the platform or the primary platform. Let's call it primary. So primary platform. And of course, this one is enumerated, and let's use string as enumeration type. All right. So then what do we have? So we have also like the sample post IDs. So private string sample post IDs. So like these are the IDs, or like we will store the IDs that we used for that trending topic. All right. So let's give it a colon definition, and let's give it a length of 248, for example, because it might go up to many IDs. It depends on what you have, of course. So here you need to be careful to like when defining this one. And now we need to add a relationship, because every trending topic has a relationship with the trend analysis. All right. So like it's a many to one. So here I will add a private trend analysis. Let's call it simply analysis, because we will need this one later on. And here we will have a many to one. So many to one, and also I can define the fetch type, because when I fetch the trend topic, I don't really need to fetch the trend analysis. So here I will add a fetch type lazy. So I don't want to load it when I fetch a trending topic. This means that I don't want to fetch the trend analysis. This is what I mean in here. All right. So and here, of course, we can define the join column name, and let's give it analysis ID. And finally, let's add a private, So private local date time analyzed at or detected. I think detected is much better. So like when this trend was detected, it seems really fancy. And let's add a pre-persist, and just to set this detected date at, always we set it to local date time.now. So now we have all the models or all the entities that we need. Let's go ahead and quickly add the repositories, because as I mentioned, like we will create the different methods or the different queries when we need them. But now let's simply create the classes. So it will be an interface, and let's call it repository. And let's start, for example, with the first one, scraped. So scraped post repository. And here, of course, extends JPA repository, or we can even extend, for example, the CLAUDE repository, but let's extend JPA repository with scraped posts, with scraped post and long. Let's create the second one. So like a repository for each entity. The second one, let's, of course, it's an interface, and let's call it trend analysis repository. Extends JPA repository for trend analysis, and the long, like the ID type, which is long. And finally, we have our final repository, which is the trend topic. So trend topic repository, and that's it. And here extends JPA repository for trend topic and long as the ID. So I can close all these tabs. And now we can move on to the next part, which is starting, for example, with like implementing or setting up the different services or the scrapers. All right, so maybe let's start with the scrapers, and I will show you what do we need from there. All right, so now let's start with the scraping part. So it will be divided into 2 or maybe 3 different parts. But of course, like we will implement each platform separately. But what I mean is, like, we need to go through some configuration steps, and this is what I mean, but we will do it maybe in 2 or 3 different parts. Not videos, but parts in the same video, don't get me wrong. So the first thing, I will create an interface, and I will create it under a package I will call scraper. And here I will call it platform scraper. So platform scraper. So this platform scraper, it's simply an interface, and here I will define a platform and the method called getPlatform, because from each scraping platform I want to know what is the platform that I used. And of course I want to return a list of scraped posts, get posts, or let's call this one just simply scrape, right? Like this will be the scraping method. All right. And now this is like the contract for my scraping, or like for the different scraping platforms. And for example, every time you want to add a new platform, so for example, here we will start with Reddit, Hacker News, and Product Hunt scrapers. But if you want to add another platform you want to scrape, you simply add a new class that implements this platform scraper, and that's it. The rest of the code, it will be able to automatically handle all the scrapers that we have. All right. So what we will do next. So here, like simply what I should do, like I will create, for example, a Reddit scraper. All right. So it will be, I will have a class Reddit scraper, and here I will implement platform scraper. And here I need to implement 2 methods. And for example, for the get platform, like it should simply return Reddit. So for this one, it should simply return platform.reddit. And then we have the scraping or the scrape method that we need to implement. But before moving there are some few things that I would like to add. So here we have something. So for example, we have a few methods that can be used in all the scrapers. Let me give you an example. So here, if you remember, when we first created the scraped posts, we mentioned in here that we have, for example, we have the not the external, but the proxy IP used. So what was the IP that we used to scrape that post, right? So we need the method to detect the IP that we used. So here, if we want to add this method, we need to define it in all the scrapers, but we can move it to a level up and define it in another class or an abstract or a super class, and then we can extend that one. So this is the first one. We have another one. We have, for example, another method that should fetch any URL. So a method, we need to pass the URL and fetch that one, like the thing that I want to explain in here is when we, for example, when we want to scrape Reddit, so we need to fetch the URL, we need to go through the proxy. So instead of defining or rewriting or duplicating the same code in each scraper, we can simply move it up to a higher level, as I mentioned. All right. So for that, I will create a new class and I will call it abstract scraper. So this abstract scraper, simply I come in here, I do extend abstract scraper and implement the platform scraper. In the abstract scraper, for example, what I will have. So for example, let me add a public string method. Let's call it detect proxy IP. All right, so like this is the method that will detect the IP that I used. Let's say just simply return some value, I don't know, just 127.0.0.1, but we will implement it later on. So here in Reddit, or for example, the Reddit scraper, if I have a final string proxy IP, I can simply call the detect proxy IP method. All right. So then everything, or every time I need to detect the proxy IP, I can simply call it from this class right here. All right. So for this abstract scraper, as I mentioned, what do we have? What do we need? So we need, for example, another method. It's a public string. Let's call it fetch, like simply fetch. And we will get a final string URL. So the URL that we want to fetch. Let's return empty for now, and then we will implement it later on. Also, since we mentioned that we will use OKHTTP as our client, or our HTTP client, so we need, first of all, we need to add that dependency. All right, so here all I need to do is to go to the pom.xml, and I can just scroll down after Lombok. I guess, yeah, we can add it in here. So let's add the dependency, and the group ID, it's com, I think com.squareup, if I'm not wrong. Sorry, not the artifact, but the group ID. Or yeah, sorry, I did it the other way around. So if I do OK HTTP in here, it should automatically suggest the group ID. I don't need to remember that. I don't need to remember the group. All I need to remember is the artifact ID. All right. And here, of course, we mentioned that we need JSoup. So let's add another dependency. Let's prepare it from now. And here we need JSoup. And it's from org.jsoup, and we can use the latest version. At the time of recording of this video, it's 1.18.3. All right. And here all I need to do is to update my Maven dependencies. So why I added these two dependencies? Because in the abstract scraper, I need another method. So here I will need a method of type, or that should return an OKHTTP client. All right. So let's call it, maybe instead of get, let's simply call it OKHTTP client. So let's leave it this way, and we will implement it later on. Okay. So what do we have next? So next we need to configure, or to add the different configurations of our proxy provider. All right. So this is so simple. All I need to do is to go to the resources in here and define the properties. Okay. So I need to define the different properties for my proxy provider. So I will just go in here, just down, like at the bottom of the application.yaml file, and I will add or define proxy. And this is really important because you can use different proxies, and all you need to do is to define or to redefine or provide the proxy information. So for the proxy, we need the host. So for the host, let's maybe just keep it empty for now. We will fill with information later on, depending on the proxy provider that we will use, and the port, for example, let's say 99, just for that. And we will have, of course, a username. Let's call it also this way. And we have a password. All right. So this is the password. And finally, we need something called user agent, because when we use proxies, we need to define user agent. Something, let me explain it in easy words. It's something just to say, for example, when I want to scrape the data from Reddit or Hacker News or Product Hunt, I want to simulate it as, for example, a Mozilla agent. So like saying, okay, I'm using Mozilla browser or Chrome browser to scrape or to fetch this data. All right. So like this is what I mean with that. So these are our proxy configuration. Before that, let's go ahead and just try to define some proxy config. So here I will create a new class in a config package, and I will call it proxy config. All right, so this proxy config, simply like it's a class that where I can define the different where I can define the properties. All right, so first it should be a configuration. So it's a configuration, and of course we need to add the configuration properties. So it's a configuration properties, and I need to provide the prefix. So the prefix is this proxy. So for example, if you have two levels, proxy dot something, and then you have this data, you can also provide it in here. Or if you want, if you only want to keep the higher level, just specify the prefix in here. So this is how configuration properties work. And of course we need the getter, and we need like the basic Lombok annotations. And here, for example, I can add SLF4J for logging. So here I simply need to provide the host, the port, and I need to provide username and password, and finally a string user agent. So here there is something that I need to mention. So for example, here you name it user-agent, or so here you can name it user agent like with a camel case, or you can also here you can name it as well user agent. So like it works for both of them. All right, so like there is no issue with that. All right, so now these are the configurations. So this will be automatically injected at the application startup, and every time I need to get the host, simply I need to inject this proxy config to get the host port, username, and so forth. So here I just need to define one method. So I will define a method that should return a proxy, and the proxy it's from java.net. So you need to import the correct file. So it's not Java lang reflection, but java.net, because like it's about networking. And let's call the method to proxy. Okay, the auto completion works really great. So here I simply want to return a proxy, and the type is it's an HTTP proxy, and I want to use the inet socket address using the port, the host and the port. All right, I can remove this one and import the class in the correct way, and that's it. So this method we will use it, or we will need it later on. All right, so now I have the proxy configuration, but from where do I get this information, like the host, the port, username, password, and so on and so forth? So for the user agent, I'll just simply specify you or provide you with the one that I always use, which is like Mozilla, Windows, Apple WebKit, Chrome, Safari, and so on and so forth. So like this is the user agent. And as I mentioned, like every time you want to send a request through the proxy, it's always better and good to provide the user agent. You can for example, like simply specify Mozilla 5.0, but it's better to have multiple options. All right. So now just let's get back to this part. Where do I get this host, port, and username? Actually, I'm trying multiple proxy providers, and every time I want to show you one. So today I will show you the one I'm using for this video. So in the next part, I will just explain everything about this proxy provider, and then I will show you how you can set up your proxy, how to get the configuration, and then we will come back in here and provide all this information. All right, so let's move on to the next part. All right, so for the proxy, today I will be using Proxy Seller. So all you need to do is to go ahead and create an account. As simple as that. Nothing more is required. So Proxy Seller provides so many options. So like you can have private SOC5, you can have private IPv4 with different countries along like different locations, Europe, Asia, Africa, and so on and so forth. North Africa, Asia, South America, and so on and so forth. So like you have so many options. The same for IPv6. You can also have ISP proxies, residential proxies, mobile proxies, and a bunch of other different options. And as you can see, like here we have like really good speed, subnets, 24-hour support service, refund and replacements, and so on and so forth. And you can see here the prices, they are like really affordable. So I'm trying this one out. So now let me go ahead and show you how you can configure the proxy. So here you can click, for example, on residential proxies from here to start your trial. And you have like 3-day trial for only $2, which is really affordable if you want to follow up this tutorial. Otherwise, you just click on your profile in here and then go to orders. And from the orders here, you have the different options: IPv4, IPv4, v4 mix, IPv6, and so forth. So here you have resident, and then all you need to do is to add some gigabytes. Let's say, for example, 1 gigabyte just to start, and then you can purchase, and you select your payment method and then submit the order. Once you submit the order, it takes between 1 to 3 minutes in order to have your proxy and everything available. So just wait for it for a few moments, and then you will receive an email saying that everything will be available within 1 to 3 minutes. Once you have that, we move on to the next part, and I will show you how you can configure the proxy. So let's go back to orders in here. And from here, you see that you have, so this is your consumption. And then you scroll down, and here where you can configure the proxy. So let's call it, for example, AI agent proxy. And then choose the rotating option, because we need a rotation. And here you can choose the period. So here you have multiple options. You can have, for example, you can rotate the IP address every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or even custom input, or you can select for each request. So this is the option that we will go with. And here the authorization method, let's use username and password. And the export format, let's say a link or a file, like both of them are fine. And here, for example, like if you want to filter out and exclude some countries and regions, just go ahead and select what you want to exclude. Then for the format, you can select this one, login, password, and IP port, and then click on create. So once you click on create, so this will create and prepare the proxy for you. And then if you scroll up in here in the proxy list, you will see the proxy or the list of proxies that you already created. So for our AI agent proxy, this is the username and password that we have. So like this is this one is the username and this one is the password. One thing, please do not use this one while following this tutorial, because I will just delete it after recording this video. So this will land in some errors when you want to try that one. Also, if, for example, if you want to update the proxy configuration, you can switch it from here, from general to sticky, to also like for the rotation, you can specify for how long you want to rotate it. Also, you can click on this link and it will give you all the configuration and confirmation you want. So here you can save it and then you can see what you have in here. So, but we can provide this one. So I will start by copying and moving, or like putting this information in our configuration file in our project. So let's go back in here, and now let me paste this one. So for the host, so the host is res, or like resources.proxy-seller.com. So this is the host URL and the port. So because, okay, so let me show it back again. So here, if we click on this one and we download the file, so let me save this one in here and let's try to open it, and let me try to zoom in. So this is where I get the information. So this is the URL, this is the port. Let me copy this here and let's go back to IntelliJ. And yes, so this is okay, so formatting, so that's not a problem. So as I mentioned, like this is the URL, we can put it in here, and I guess, yeah, it's res. Okay, so this is, 1 second, let me do it. All right, so this is the URL, and let's put it in here. And then we take the port, which is the port 10,000. Let's put it here in the port, and we have the username and password. So this one is the username, like the left-hand side is the username, and the right-hand side is the password. All right. So now we have everything configured. So I can close this one. And now we have our proxy configured. Let me also delete this one in here. And now we can move on to implement our different scrapers. And here, because we already defined the proxy config, so we will be able to inject automatically the different host port and so forth. All right, so now let's move on and let's continue first implementing or adding these abstract scraper different methods, and then we will continue with that. All right, so now look, let's get back to our proxy scraper or abstract scraper. So for that, here, what do we need? So first we need to mark this one as a component. All right, and I will use SLF or J for logging. And here, every class or each class that will extend this abstract scraper, we need to pass our proxy configuration as a parameter. So in this case, I will do it this way. So private final, and then proxy configuration. And here we need to import the correct one, because Spring also has a proxy config class. So you need to import the correct one. And here I will create a constructor with the proxy configuration as a parameter. And I can move this one a little bit up in here. And now let's start by configuring our OKHTTP method. All right, so like this one, it will return an instance of OKHTTP. And then like we will use the proxy configuration as a parameter. All right, so I will show you how to do that. So here we need to return OKHTTP.builder, builder. And then first we can provide the proxy. All right. And of course we don't need these parentheses. And here we can define the proxy. So where can we get the proxy from? So this .proxy config.toProxy, it's the one that we just configured in here. Okay. So this is what we need to define. And then we need the authentication. So then, and finally, of course, we need the .build method. So let's add it from now. And then we need the authentication, because our proxy needs the authentication, which is like the username and password. And here, so I will add the proxy authenticator. So proxy authenticator. And then it's a Lambda expression. And simply we need to pass the route and response. All right. So, and then let's get back to the line. And here simply it's response.builder or new builder. Sorry, not response.new builder, response.request.new builder. So because it's about the request, and then we need to pass the header. So here we will set the header. So the header, what is it? So the header is our proxy authorization. So proxy dash authorization. And what is the authorization? We need the basic authorization, all right, as already mentioned in the URL. So here it will be credentials.basic, and we need to provide the username and password. So this .proxy config.get username and this .proxy config.get password. All right, so this is the configuration. And then finally, of course, we need the .build method, or we need to call the .build. So here, okay, sorry, it's header, not head. So here it should be header, because we need to pass the header. Let's format the code. And then what we can add also a connection timeout in case there's something wrong, or like we cannot reach the proxy, or we cannot perform this request, how long we should wait. So let's say 30. And let's import this one correctly. So time unit. Yes. And then we can also add a read timeout as 30 seconds, for example, if you want to. You can configure this one, or you can even externalize it and add it to the proxy configuration, like with the read timeout, the connect timeout, and so on and so forth. So this is the method that will return an OKHTTP client. And this one, we will use it afterwards in the fetch method. So how we can fetch? So here, simply, we need to define a request object. So it's always OKHTTP equals new request. We will use the builder instead. So it will be a new request and then .builder. And here we can pass the URL. So it's the URL that we receive as a parameter. And of course, we need to add the header. So the header is the user agent. All right. So like this is our user agent, and we get the user agent from the proxy config.user agent. All right. And finally, of course, .build. And here we need also to add maybe to surround it with try and catch, and maybe throw the IO exception. All right. So now we have our request. Then we should use a try with resources, because every time we open a request, we need to close it after the request is done. All right. Otherwise, this might create a connection pooling. So we need to close every time the response. So here, let's have final response, and let's call it response equals OKHTTP, the method we just created, and then .new call. And the call, we will use the request that we defined earlier, dot execute. All right, so let's close this one. Open the brackets here. And of course, this one, we need to add exception, the IO exception to the method signature. And here, once we get the response, let's make a check. So if response dot is successful, so if successful, and here let's say not. If the response is not successful, I will simply throw a new IO exception. And let's say, for example, let's maybe add a clearer message. Let's say HTTP code and then plus response dot code. And then for URL, for example. Just to, this will help us to make sure that everything is fine. And finally, we need to return the response.body.string. And then because this response.body, the body might be null. So what we can do, we can add an assertion. So assert response body is not null. All right. And now we can remove this return method from here. Okay. So this is our fetch method. Then we need to implement the detect proxy IP. So this one is really simple. So I will add a try and catch block. So in the try, I will add this final string body equals, and then we call the method fetch. So to fetch your current IP address, there is a website that you can use. It's called https:// it's called api.ipfi. So ipfi.org and then slash. All right. So this is the method. And then let's add the catch block. Yep. Let's format. And let's make this one final. And yeah. So after we get the body, all we need to do is return the body.trim. Trim just to remove the spaces from the left and right. And here, in case we have an exception, let's debug this one. Let's say maybe fail to detect proxy IP, and we print the exception. And here, let's maybe return unknown. All right, so maybe unknown IP address. So this will help us investigate later on in case we face an issue. So now we have our abstract scraper ready. And here you see that there is an error. There is one related problem because in the Reddit scraper, we need to pass, or like we need to call the superclass with the proxy config. So how to do that? So let's add a component in here and SLF4J also in here. And here simply I need to inject the different parameters that we have. So I will create a constructor. So let's create a constructor, an empty one. And here all I need to do is to inject the proxy config. All right. You do not need to declare an attribute or a field with with the proxy config, because we will not use it inside the Reddit scraper. We only need to pass it to the superclass, which is our abstract scraper. All right. So now we have everything ready and we can move to the next step and start implementing our scrapers. All right. First we will start with the Reddit scraper, and then we will move on to the Hacker News and product hunt. All right. So now we will start implementing the Reddit scraper first. So then we need to add some configuration before we move on, and like it will define our scraping configuration. So let me add a comment, scraping config, for example. And here I will create scraping, and then first I will define the cron job. So the cron job, let's say, for example, I want to launch it every 3 hours, as I mentioned before. So it will be 0, 0, and then star divided by 3. This means 3 hours, and then star, star. This means any day of year, any month, and so forth. So then I will define Reddit configuration. So here first I will define the subreddits. So the subreddits, I will say technology. So it will be a list. So technology, artificial, and then we have, for example, machine learning. So you can define as many subreddits as you want, like in the domain that you are interested in. So I will define also startups, and finally maybe SaaS. So then there is something I want to define, which is how many posts per subreddit I want to scrape. So I will define a variable. So I will call it posts per subreddit. Okay, it's listening to me, I guess. So I will define it to 25. All right, so now Reddit configuration is ready, and I will use this same occasion to define Hacker News. And for Hacker News, I will define, for example, the top stories count. All right, so the top stories, because on Hacker News, they are called stories. So the top stories count, and I will say also 25 or even 34 Hacker News. And finally, I have product hunt. So product hunt, and for product hunt, I can define the posts count. So how many posts I want to scrape. So for the post counts, let's say 20, maybe for Hacker News. All right. So now if we go back to Reddit scraper, so here we are ready to define or to implement our Reddit scraper. So before we do that, I want to show you how you can scrape Reddit or how you can get the data from Reddit. So I will go to the browser. And in here, if you go to reddit.com and then / let's say, for example, R for subreddit, and here, let's say technology. All right. So technology. And when you say technology, so if I open this page, so this will land on the Reddit page. All right. And here you see the different posts that we have. So for example, we want to scrape this one and so on and so forth. Reddit, they provide something really nice. So in the technology, if you add hot.json, and then you provide a limit, let's say, for example, 25 as we defined before. So this will return a JSON format. So this JSON response, it contains all the information. So we have data inside it, we have children, and inside it, so let me maybe limit this one to only one. So here we see that we have one child, all right? And here we have the data, and for this data, so we have the kind, we have the subreddit, we have all the information. We have the author full name, we have dates, we have also the title. I guess it's a little bit down in here. So yeah, we have the title in here, and each one it has already an ID, and the ID, I guess it's defined a little bit down. So where is the ID? Let me search for it. Anyways, so we will find it later on. It's not a problem. So we have an ID and we have all the information that we need as I mentioned. So also there is something, for example, for the content, I think there is self text. Yeah. So this is the self text, and this contains the content. All right, so like this is the data or the JSON structure that we want to scrape. And of course, as I mentioned, like if you have a bot or robot that's scraping automatically this will be blocked by Reddit. So that's why we need to go through the proxy. All right, so now let's first inject or define what we need. So first of all, I have a private final, let's call it scraped posts or scrape post repository, and I will call it post repository. And then since we are dealing with JSON, so I will define my object mapper. So object mapper, and let's call it object mapper. And in here, I will just inject both of them in here in the constructor. So here, let's say scraped repository, let's call it post repository, and final object mapper. And in here, let's assign those variables. And now I need to inject these values in here. So first I want to copy the path for these subreddits and in the Reddit scraper, and I will have a value annotation in here. And I will use the $, and then this. So here what we will have a private list of string. Let's call it subreddits. And now let's import this class. And now this will inject the subreddits, and also a private int posts per subreddit. And here I want also to inject it. So let me duplicate this one, and here posts per subreddit. All right, so now we are almost ready to start working on the scraping. So now let's start implementing the scrape method. So to scrape the data, it's really simple. We need only to fetch the data from that JSON or from that URL, which will return a JSON format, and then we need to extract the data from it. So it's really, really simple. So I will start by first defining a list of, a list of scraped posts, and in here I will initialize it to an array list. And then let me add just some logging, log.info, and then Reddit scraper started, for example. And here Reddit scraper started, and then another log.info. So I will also add a log.info, Reddit scraper using subreddits, and I will just display the subreddits. All right. So subreddits, and here this dot subreddits. All right, so now what do we need to do? Simply, we need to loop over the different subreddits that we have. So for subreddit and the subreddits that we already have, here I need a try and catch, of course. So I will surround it with a try and catch block. And the first thing, I will have a final string URL equals the one that we already used. Okay, so the auto completion is really awesome. So reddit.com/r, and then the subreddit, and then not new, but hot in here, .json.limit. Also, you can use the new. So this will also fetch the newest Reddit. So it really depends on what you want. You can also configure it. You can inject the value in here, or you can even scrape both. All right. So it really depends on you. So now final string, let's call it JSON, equals fetch, and I want to use this URL. So here I will add a catch. So let's add the catch clause. So it's IO exception, but here I will just catch exception simply, and then I will add what I want to add here. All right, so I will do it just in few moments. And then I want to have a final string. Let's call it proxy IP equals detect proxy IP. And then here I will define a JSON node, and let's call it the root. So this will be our root node, this.objectMapper.read tree. All right. So once we read the tree, now we will start extracting the children. So final JSON node, here I will call it children equals root dot path dot data dot path data, and then path children. So as I already showed in the JSON structure before. Now from all the children that we have, because each child represents a new post. All right, so this is what I'm doing. And then I will have a final JSON node. So here JSON node, and I will call it data, for example, equals child dot path and to the data. All right, because let me show it again. So this is the structure. So we have the children, this is the child, and from the child I want to get the data. All right, so once I have the data, what I want to do first, I want to extract the external ID. So final string external ID equals my it will be like the data dot path, and the path, it's the ID, so the ID of the post, and then we have a method as text, and this method it accepts a default value. So in case I do not have the ID, I will use empty. And why I do that? Because next, if I want to test if my external ID is blank, then continue. I don't want to do anything with this post because it does not have an ID. So this means something is wrong. Okay. So next, what do I have? I need to fetch or to check that the post. So if you remember in here, so we defined already a unique constraints on the platform and the external ID. So I need to double check that the post for Reddit, or the post with the external ID for Reddit does not already exist in my database. So if this dot post repository, and then I will create a method called exists by platform and external ID. And here I can pass the get platform and external ID as parameter. So if this is true, I need to continue. Before, I need to implement this method, and that's it. All right, so I have my first method. Then if not, so if I have everything, I need to check the rest of the data that I want to scrape. So I will have a final string title equals data.path and then title, and as text, sorry, not as a string, but as text with a default value empty. All right, and then I need to check if the title is there or not. So if the title is blank, simply continue. Then I need to get the self text, which is the content. So final string self text equals data.path and then self text as text, of course. And if I have nothing, I will return empty. And here I want to add a trim. I want to trim it to remove the extra spaces. All right, so here I will add string content. So for the content here, I will just do one thing. So if I have the self text in here, I will use it otherwise I will use the title as the content. All right. So this means if my self text dot is blank, so if I do not have self text, what I want to do. So I want to take the title as I mentioned, but here I want just to make sure about something. So I will use title.substring. So I will substring it using from the position 0, and then I want to limit it to the 500 characters that we already defined. Okay, so this is what I want to do. Then what do we have? Now all we need to do is to prepare our post. But here in the post we have a method called posted at. So I will create a final local date time, and let's call it posted at. And this posted at, we can get it from data. So here I want to do something. So the JSON node, it has a method called has. So this means it will check if we have some attribute or field name. And the field name is created UTC, created underscore UTC. And if I have this one, so if I have it, I need to convert it, because like it's an epoch second or epoch second, I need to convert it to a date. How can I convert that? It's local date time dot of instant, and then inside the instant it's gonna be instant dot of epoch second. Okay, so the epoch second, it will be the data.path dot data.path dot this one. So I will just make a final double in here. So created or posted at epoch equals data.path, and then I can use the created underscore UTC and then as double. All right, so and here I can use the posted at epoch, or you can even call it epoch second if you want to. Otherwise, so here we have, or we can add a default value, which is the zone ID. So zone ID and then system default. So in case we do not have this one, we will use the system default. All right. Otherwise, so we have this one, and otherwise, let's say it is null. And sorry, this one should be a long, and in here I need to cast this one to a long as well. All right, so this is it. I can format, and now semicolon. So I can also bring this one in here. So now we have all the information, and now what we need to do is to start creating the post. So maybe let me use this auto completion and cut this one. And here I will create a final scraped post. Let me call it simply post equals this one. All right, so what do we have? So we have the platform, which is get platform. We have the external ID. We have the title, we have the content, we have the proxy IP used. I would like to organize them. And here, for example, we can also get the URL. So let me create a final string URL equals the data.path. So like I want to get the Reddit URL. This is what I want, because in the front end I want to display it when, for example, you can click and go and check the URL. So the URL is data.path, and then we have URL, and as text, sorry, not token, but as text. If we do not have it, let's return simply an empty value. All right, or null if you want to. Let's say maybe null, it's better. And then we have the author. So final string author. So it's data.path.author, otherwise it will be null. And then let's call it here Reddit URL. And then what do we have? We have the author, we have a final int score. So it will be also like data.path, and then we get the score. We have also a final int comment count. So the comment count is it's called num comments, otherwise it will default to 0. And of course we need a final string subreddit name. Let's call it simply subreddit, and then equals data.path, and then from the path we have subreddit, and from this otherwise, so it will be as text, of course. So as text, and if we do not have it, let's use the subreddit. Let's use the subreddit that we are already looping over. And this one I'm gonna call it subreddit name, for example, and that's it. So now I can continue. So here it will be subreddit name, and now I can add the URL. So the URL, and it will be the Reddit URL .author. And we also need the score, because this is important later on when we implement the agent. And then we have comment count, and we have the subreddit, which is already defined, and this one. All right, so now we have the post, and simply we need to add it in here. And then once we are done with this, let's add some log. So log.info, and then let's say Reddit r/, and then we can add we can add like the subreddit name, and then the post size. And here we can say scraped the number, how many new posts we added. And then after each scraping, I will add a thread.sleep half a second. So like it will be 500. And when we have that, so there is a specific kind of exception that might be thrown. So I will catch it in here. So here it's called the interrupted exception. All right. So when we have an interrupted exception, what I need to do is thread.currentThread.interrupt. I need to interrupt the current thread, and of course break. So this should not continue, because like it's already interrupted. All right, so now in this one, I will simply add a log.error. So let's say maybe fail to scrape Reddit, the subreddit, and let's say just get message. I don't need to print everything. And that's it. So finally, I need to return posts. And this is the scraping method for Reddit. Okay, so this is how we can scrape Reddit. We simply read the JSON response, and then we go through it and persist it into our database. So now let's move on and implement Hacker News as well. Hacker News, it's pretty similar to Reddit, because they provide also a Firebase API, and we can use it to scrape the data. So like it will be really similar to this one, but I will show you step by step how we can implement this. All right, now let's implement our scraping orchestrator. So I will create a new class in the service package, and let's call it scraping orchestrator. So this scraping orchestrator, it will contain mainly two methods. So the first one is to scrape all, like scrape from all the platforms, and the second one is to scrape a specific platform. So here let's add a service annotation and the required args constructor and slf4j for logging. So we need first to inject a list. So here we want to inject all the scrapers, right? So you don't need to inject Hacker News, Reddit, and so on and so forth, because every time, for example, you want to add a new scraper or a new data source, you need to adjust or to update this scraping orchestrator. But there is a better way. So all I need to do is to have a list of platform scraper. All right. So the platform scraper, because here we defined already the interface, so we can use this one. So when you inject it this way, Spring will inject every bean of type platform scraper. This means every class that implements this interface. All right. And then a private final scraped post repository. And let's call it maybe post repository. As simple as that, like to use a short name. And here I will return a public map, and it will be of type platform and the list of scraped posts, or maybe not the list, I can simply return the number of the scraped posts. So let's import platform, and here let's call it scrape all. So scraping all, simply what do I need? So first, since we are returning a map, let's define a map of type platform and integer. So platform and integer, let's call it results equals a new enum map. All right, so a new enum map, and we will define it of platform.class. All right, so like this is how we define an enum map. All right, so then for here final platform scraper inside scrapers. So here what do I need? First I need to surround it with a try and catch. In case some scraper fail to scrape some data, I should not block the others from continuing. All right, so I will have a final list scrape posts equals scraper.scrape. So this scraper.scrape, it will call this method, and we already have the implementation of them. All right, so then final list of type scraped post, let's say saved if you want to, equals this dot post repository dot save all. All right, and then results dot put scraper dot get platform, and then the saved size. So the saved dot size, and here let's say for example scraped like the number, like how many posts from the platform. So here maybe let's add new posts, since we always make sure that we scrape only new posts. And here let's catch any exception, and simply I will just do log.error failed to scrape the platform and e.get message. All right, and then simply in this case I need to set 0 posts for that given platform, and finally just return the results. Also, since we mentioned that we can scrape a specific platform, so I will do a public list of scraped posts. Let's say, let's call it scrape platform. All right, so let's call it scrape platform. And in this case, we need to pass the platform as a parameter. Okay, the auto completion is really awesome. So here, so what do I need to do? I need to loop over all the given scrapers that I have in here. So like this list that I have in here. So I can use this keyword dot stream, and then I want to filter and only select the platform that I want to scrape, and then find first, for example. And then here after find first, I need to map. So here we can add the map method, and here platform scraper dot scrape. So we can use this one, and after this I need to map. I need to add another map. So this dot post repository, and then save all. All right, and I don't need the or else throw. I don't need this one, and here simply or else I just return an empty list. All right, so okay, the auto completion was fine, but not really what I wanted. So just to explain this one, so here I stream over the list of scrapers that I have, and then I filter. So I filter just to get the scraper that I want, and then find first, because like it should return something, otherwise it will fall to this line. The first thing, I need to scrape all of them, and this it will return a list of the of scrapers, and then all I need to do is to map it, and like the result that I get in here, which is the list of scrape posts, I need to save them all. All right, so this is the scrape platform. So now we have our scraping orchestrator, and this one we will use it later on in the controller to expose these different endpoints. So now we need to implement another one, which is, for example, like the service for the trending. We need to implement the trend service. So this trend service is the one that will get the data, fetch it, aggregate it, and so forth. All right. So this is what we will implement next. All right. So I guess the service, it was created in the wrong place, so I will just drag and drop it to put it in the root. So now let's create our trend service. So trend service. So this trend service, you can consider it more as like some to return some statistics and so. So here let's add the service and the required args constructor. And for that, I need to inject my repositories. So private final. First, let's start with the trend repository. So, or the trend topic repository, let's call it trend topic repository. We need also our scraped post repository. Let's call it scraped post repository, and private final. So this one, it should be final, of course. And here private final trend analysis repository. Let's call it trend analysis repository. So this will contain, or like we will expose few methods. And first, for example, we can get the latest trends. So let's add a private or a public list of trend topic. So let's call it here get latest trends. Instead of get latest trend repositories, let's just simply get latest trends. And for that, let's define a final local date time. And let's call it since. So I want to say, okay, since the last 24 hours, for example. Okay, so it will be a local date time dot now, and then minus hours, 24 hours. So like I want to get all the trends for the latest 24 hours. All right, then all I need to do is return. So return this dot trend topic repository, and then find. So we can have find, like we'll create a method, we will call it find by detected at after. So I will explain what this means. So find by, and then detected at after order by trend. So this is our method, or the query that we will use. So this means let's add also like a desk, because we want the latest first. Let's create the method and I will explain it to you. So find by detected at. So this is the attribute, or this is the detected at that we have in here. So I want to find all the trending topics by detected at after. So it will be after this since order by trend score. All right, so order by trend score. Just let's make sure that we have the correct names. So do I have trend score, or is it simply score? Okay, so it's a score. Maybe let's rename this one to trend score. So like this, we make sure that we have this one. And here detected by, let's make sure that we have, okay, detected at. I'm gonna copy the name, and this one is an uppercase. All right, so it was a typo. And of course, I need to copy this one and use it in this service. All right, so like this is the first method. And this, as I mentioned, it will return the top trending or the latest trending in the past 24 hours. All right, so then we can also define in the same way a public list of trend topics or trend topic. Let's call it get top topic or get top trends. I guess this makes more sense. So get top trends, and simply we create a query. So return this dot trend topic repository, and then like when we use JPQL or when we use the queries from the Spring Data JPA, we can write, for example, that we want the top 20. So we can use a method called, so we can call it this way and it works. So find top and then how many elements you want. So like find top 20 and then by which field you want to you want to filter, and then order by trend score and then desk. All right, so this now all we need to do is to create the method, and that's it. So it's find top 20 trends by and then order by trend score desk. All right, so like it's really simple. So I'm just trying to explain and make everything clear for you. So we need also another one, a private or a public list of trend topic, and in here let's call it get trends by category. So get trends by category, and the category it will be for example like Reddit or technology or and so on and so forth. So I will have here final string category. So category, and now let's simply return this dot trend repository or trend topic repository, and then dot find by primary platform. So it's our primary platform. It's the attribute that we defined in here. So this is our category, or this is what I mean by category. And then order by trend score. So order by trend score desk. All right. And here all I need to do is to pass the category. Sorry, I think I'm mixing things up. I will copy this one. So category, I guess we have category attribute in here. Yes, we have category in here. So let's here say get find by category order by trend score desk, and here let's say category, and in the same way I can use this one. So here let's call it platform, and here get trends by platform. All right, so this is what I want to do. All right, so now let's first create this method, and let's rename it because we made a typo. Let's remove this P from here. So then let's create the other one to get by platform or primary platform. So let me copy primary platform. Maybe I made a platform. So let's just copy it. And this one is an uppercase. Let's copy it and replace it in here just to make sure. Find by primary platform order by trend score desk. So I think this is it. All right, so now let's move on to the next one. So for example, the next one, it will be some kind of dashboard stats. All right, so it will be a public map, and then of type string and object. So it will be an object in here. So let's call it, for example, get dashboard stats. So like these are some statistics for our dashboard. We don't need any parameters in here. And let's import the map class. And then simply I will return a map dot off, and then I will provide the different values. So the first one, let's say maybe total posts, like how many posts do we have, and it will be this dot scraped repository dot count. This is the first one. The second one, let's say for example the Reddit posts, and then it will be this dot scraped repository dot count by platform, and then let's say platform.reddit. All right, so we don't have this this count by platform. Let's create the method, and that's it. Let me just double check. Yes, we have platform and Y in here, just to make sure that the name does not contain a typo. Yeah. All right. Yeah, it was without a T. I was sure about that. All right, so here we have 3 platforms. So let's fetch all 3 platforms. So this one is Reddit post. The second one, let's say Hacker News posts. And the other one, let's say, for example, product hand posts. And here, let's say Hacker News. And here, let's say product hand. And then let's, for example, add maybe total trends, like total trends, like how many trends do we have? And this will be this dot trend topic repository dot count. And for example, let's add the last analysis, like when was the last analysis, when was it executed? It's this dot analysis repository or trend analysis repository dot find top by find top by order by analysis date. All right, so this is what we want to do. So find top by order by analyzed at desk. So this is the method that we want. Let's go ahead and create it. Let me add the comma in here first. So let's create this method, and this should return an optional of trend analysis, not an object. So it should be an optional of trend analysis. Let's import the optional. And then if we have, so let's just add a mapping method. So if we have, so we get the trend analysis and then get analyzed at, otherwise or else, instead of null, let's say maybe local date time dot now. All right. And let's format the code. So this is the dashboard, or like the dashboard method to get some trends. So now we have our trend service. So now we will move on, or like the next step, because I will leave the LLM or the brain of our application to the last. So next we will implement the scheduler, so like the research scheduler, so how we can schedule our job, or how we can schedule our scrapers to be executed every 3 hours, save the data, and so forth. And then we will implement the controllers, and finally we will implement the LLM analysis service. All right, so now let's create our scheduler. So here I will create a new class, and I will create it under scheduler package, and I will call it research scheduler. So this is my research scheduler. Of course, it should be a component. So this is the first thing. Let me make this one full screen. So we have a component. We have also the required args constructor and SLF4J for logging. And in here, first, what do we need? We need our private final scraping orchestrator. We need also the scrape post repository, private final scraped post repository. Let's call it post repository or scrape post repository. It's as you like. And finally, we need something that we will implement in few moments, which is our private final. And let's call it our LLM analysis service. So this is the brain of our application. So analysis service, let's call it analysis service. So we don't have, let me just rename this one service. So we don't have this class yet, but we will create it under service, and we will come back to the implementation later on. I will simply add the service and required args constructor and SLF4J. And then we will implement it later. All right, so here let me also rename this one. And now we need one method. So we need a public, so the method should be public and should be of type void. And then let's call it run research cycle. All right, so this run research cycle, what it will do, it's gonna be, first of all, it will be a cron or a scheduled job. and the cron is this one. So let me open the application.yaml, and this is the cron. So it's scraping dot cron. So here's scraping dot cron. And here, as you can see, it will be executed every 3 hours at minute 0. All right, so here let's start by infoing, so like adding some info. And here let maybe make it in this way. So start researching, sorry, not zeros, but let's say start or research cycle started. Like this is also fine for me. And then I will have a final map of type platform and integer. And then I will just call the method scrape all. All right. So then log.info. So I just need not finished, but scraping completed. And here maybe let's say, let me change this one. All right, I will type it as I want. So scraping completed, and the results is results are the following results. So like the results that we have in here. All right. So then I will create a final local date time. Let's call it since. And then, for example, it will be local date time dot now minus hours. So minus it should be local date time, not only local date. So minus hours. Let's say the last 6 hours. And then let's add a final list of scraped posts. So scraped post, let's call it recent posts, equals this dot repository or post repository that dot find all scraped at, after, and then order by score disk. So, and here since we don't have this one yet, let's go ahead and create it. Let me just double check. So this one, it should be also local date time. Let's import the list. And now let's go ahead and create this method and order by score and then disk. Yeah, this should work. All right. So now we have the list or the recent posts. So here I will just make sure that if my recent posts is not empty, then I will call my analysis service. So this dot analysis service dot analyze. So in the analysis service, I will go ahead and create an analyze method. So public, it will be a void analyze. All right. And this one, it will take a final list of scrape posts. Let's call it posts or scrape post. This should be fine. And here, let's say analyze and the recent post. So we want to analyze the recent posts. Once we are done, simply I will add a log.info and then LLM analysis completed for how many number of posts. All right. So, and here, let's say recent posts dot size, because the scraping will scrape everything, save it to the database, and then we want to get the latest post. Maybe they were not analyzed, and then what we want to do, we want to use the LLM to analyze them, and then just simply logging. And when we implement this analyze or the analysis or the analyze service, which is the LLM based analysis, we will see what we will do later on. And finally, let's say log.info research cycle completed. All right. So this is our research scheduler. So what we will do next is we will expose these we'll expose these services and methods that we created to the different controllers that we have. And finally, we will implement our LLM analysis service. All right. I'm going to close all. And now I will create the controllers. So the first one, let's start with the scrape controller. So I will create a package called controller and then scrape controller. So the scrape controller, it's a simple controller, but it will expose the different analysis or the different services that we have. So let's say it's a REST controller. And let's add the request mapping. So let's call it maybe /API/scrape. And we need the required args constructor. Now let's inject few services. So we need our private final scraping orchestrator. I'm gonna call it orchestrator as a short name. And then I want to have a private final LLM analysis service. And let's call it analysis service. And we have private final scrape post repository. So you know that I usually do not use the repositories inside the controllers, but for me I wanted to focus more on the brain, or the service, but I want to give you like the full picture. So that's why I'm like the code, you will see that it's different from what I usually provide to you. So let's start with the first one, or the first endpoint. So it's going to be a post mapping, and here it will be I will call it /run. So this one, it will trigger the full cycle. So I will say a public response entity, and it will be of type map of string and integer, not string and object, because the scrape all returns an object, a map of string and object. Let's import the class, and here let's say trigger full cycle. All right, so triggering the full cycle, it's gonna look like this. So I will have a final map of string and object, and let's call it scrape results equals this.orchestrator.scrape all. All right, so like this, I will scrape everything. And then what do I need to do? Final local date time, and I will call it since. So I will try to get the last, the top trending or the top scraped elements for the last 6 hours. So let me double check in here. So scrape all, yeah, so here it should be platform. Yeah, so let's import this one first. So this is platform, and then so we will have a final list of scraped posts. Let's call it maybe post or recent posts, and then we will use the same method, find all scraped at after order by score desk, and then we pass the since. And now we need the trend analysis. Right, so we need the trend analysis. Let's call it analysis equals null. I will initialize it to null, and then I need to double check if posts is empty, or let me call this one posts as a shorter name. So if posts is empty, if it's not empty, what I want to do, analysis equals this dot analysis service dot analyze the posts that we have. All right, so like this is what we want to do. And then what do we want, or like what do we want to do? And here this analyze, I think it should return a list of posts. All right, so let's change this one, or sorry, this should return the trend analysis. This should return the trend analysis because, so let me return null here just for now, because this analyze method, it will analyze, send everything to the LLM. Once we get the response back, we will save it to the trend analysis. So it should return a trend analysis, because every time we trigger or we call this method analyze, it should return a trend analysis. All right. So then let's simply return. Right. So it will be okay. Response entity dot okay. I don't know what it put in here. All right, so here we have scraped results, so this is fine. And posts, I want also to add the posts analyzed. So posts analyzed, so it will be post.size. And here I want analysis ID, So it will be if my analysis is not null, so I get the ID. Otherwise, let's say maybe simply none instead of null. All right, so this is our method. So this is the method that will trigger the full cycle of scraping. and in here it should be an integer instead of that. All right, so now I need also another post mapping endpoint, which is it will be slash platform. So like it will be scrape. Let me reduce this one. So it will be scrape and then slash platform, and then we need to pass the platform that we want to scrape. All right, so then it will be a public response entity. In the same way, it will be a list of scrape post. So let's call it maybe trigger scraper for platform, or maybe scrape platform. Simpler. All right, so this one, it will be a path. So a path variable, and it's called platform. So we can keep it as platform in here, and in this one also platform. And then what we need to do, simply we need to return scrape platform from the orchestrator. All right. And now finally in this controller, I will add a get mapping method or endpoint, which will return the different posts. All right. So it will be a public response entity of list of scrape posts. Let's say get recent, let's call it recent posts. And in here, I can add a request param, for example, like if I want to get the recent platforms, or so request param, if I want to get for a specific platform or not. So I will say it's not required. Otherwise, it will be platform. So for example, I want to get the recent posts only for Reddit or Hacker News, and so forth. So here I will just first make a check if the platform is not null. So what I want to do, I want to return response entity dot OK, and then this dot post repository dot find by platform, and then order by scraped at desk. And then I just need to pass the platform as a parameter, and in here I just need to create the method. So let's remove this nullable. Otherwise, what I want to return, so not find all, but let's say find top 200, for example, and then order by scraped at desk. All right, and that's it. So we don't have this method. Let's go ahead and create it, and let's remove the at not null. So now we have the controller, or like the scraping or the scrape controller. Now we can move on and implement the second one, which is the trend controller, and it will also expose few information like the top trends, latest trends, and the dashboard stats that we already defined in our trend service. All right, so now I can close all this, and I will create a new controller, and I will call it trend controller. So trend controller, and of course, so I can copy paste these annotations from here. Let me close this, and this one, for example, let's call it /API/trends. And then I need to inject private final trend service. So this is it. So like most of them, they will be like get mapping endpoints. So let's say the first one, it's a get mapping, and then it will be a public response entity, and this should return a list of trend topic. So let's call it, or like get top trends. And in here, let's import the class return response entity trend service.get top trends. So like it will be really just calling the different service methods. So here, let's say at get mapping, and then let's say /latest, like to get the latest trends. And here maybe just response entity get latest trends, and simply we call the method latest trends. All right, the next one, a get mapping, and let's call this one /category. So slash category slash, and then we need the category as a path variable, and then let's say a public response entity of type list of trend topic, and then let's say get trends by category. All right, so here it will be a path variable and a final string category, and simply here we need to return a response entity get trend service by category. And now we need the one for the platform. Let's duplicate this one, and here it will be platform and platform in here. So platform and platform. So here by platform, and we pass platform as a parameter. All right, and finally, so here it should be platform as well. So platform. And finally, what do we need? We need the dashboard. So let's call it, okay, so let's import, and here let's call it stats instead of dashboard. And it will be a map of object, string and object, and get dashboard stats. And that's it. So now we have the trend controller. Now what is only left for this backend part is to add, first before moving to the analysis or to the LLM analysis service, let's add some configuration, because we will need that when we implement the front-end application using Angular, so we do not fall or get the course issues, or we get blocked by course. So like I will add this configuration, and then we will move on to really implement this, the LLM service analysis. So now, we do not want to get blocked when we use the front-end application to reach the backend. We don't want to get blocked or rejected by the course policy. So for that, and since our application does not contain security, so we can add a course configuration or provide a course bean. So in this case, or in this context, there is another workaround. So I will create a class, and I will call it webconfig in the config package. So the first thing, it should be a configuration. So a configuration, and here all I need to do is to implement, a web MVC configurer. So this web MVC configurer, there is a method. So let's say implement methods, and there is a method, it's called add course mapping. All right, so this one, and when it passes as a parameter a course registry, and in here simply we can add our configuration. So it will be a registry.add mapping, and here let's say /API for any path in the /API, or we can leave it as ** to add it for all. And then we can say allow origins, and let's say for the origins whether you can add star or you can be more specific. So in our case, let's say for example it is HTTP localhost. I don't want alibu.com. Nice. All right. So 42,000. So it's HTTP localhost 42,000, which is the Angular port. And then let's say allowed methods. So for the allowed methods, I guess you can leave it to star or you can be more specific. So let's also add the put method and the delete methods if you want to, and also the allow headers. And let's keep it to star to allow all the headers. So this is the configuration you need to use in case you have an Angular application connected to your Spring backend, and then you get the request has been blocked by course policy. All right, so like this is how you can solve it in case you do not have security, because if you have security implemented, you simply add it to the security configuration, as I showed thousands of times in my different YouTube videos. All right, so now we will move on to the best part. I guess everyone is waiting for this one, and now we will implement our LLM service or LLM analysis service, and I will show you how, because now this is like the creation or the recreation of our agent. So let's go ahead and do it. All right, so now I guess this is the best part, and I'm pretty sure you will enjoy it so much. So in my services package, I will create, sorry, I already created this one, but we will implement it. So what do we have in here? So here we have our LLM analysis service. What does this LLM does exactly? So first we will have our system prompt, like every agent in the world, every AI agent, I mean. So then we will have like a bunch of configurations, and then we need to send, or we need to communicate with the LLM, send him all the information that we have, the system prompt, the message, and so on and so forth, and ask it to analyze the data, return the result, we get the result, and then save it. So implementing it is not really, it's not a really big deal, but the most important part is the system prompt, is like the way you want to ask the LLM, or how should the LLM behave in order to give you the best results. And also it really depends on the model or the LLM that you use. For example, if you run a local LLM like with like few billions of tokens, maybe the results might not be the best results, but it's like the final result, it really depends on the LLM that you are using. So for that, for us, or for the sake of this tutorial, I would like to use Anthropic. All right, so I want to use Anthropic. So the first thing I want to do is I will go to application.yaml, and here I will add some configuration. All right, so it's just a configuration. I will call it Anthropic configuration. So Anthropic config, for example, is totally enough. And here it will be Anthropic. So this is what I will be defining. So it will be API key. So Anthropic API key, I will put it in my .env file. So I will put it in here. So let me even copy it from now. So to be honest, like this is not a value that I will show in this video. Also, like I will revoke it and then like create another one to keep it in this project. So, but I will not show it in this video. So that's why I'm creating it from now. And then we have the model. So which model that we want to use. So for this one, you can use, for example, Claude Opus, or you can use any model you want. But for me, I will use the Claude Haiku. So I will use the model Haiku 4.5, and I guess it's 2025-1001, something like that. So it's 2025-1001. So this is the model that I will use. And here I need to provide the base URL. So the base URL, it's simply api.anthropic.com/v1. And here we need to provide the version. So not versions, but it's only one version. And I guess it's 2023-0601, because like I use this one in other agents that I built. So I kind of remember all this information. All right, so this is our API key. And as I mentioned, once I will not show it again. So it will be already in my .env file, and I will not show it in this video. I will show you how you can generate your own API key, of course. But yeah, exact. So let's not waste a lot of time in here. So I can close this one. And now we can go to Anthropic, and we can start creating, or I will show you how to create your API key. So here, all you need to do is to go to platform.claude.com/settings/keys, or simply if you land to this page, all you need to do is to click on API keys and then create a key. Just give it, so the project or the workspace, you can select what you want, just give it a name and click add. But there is one condition. You need to have some credits. So you can generate an API key without credits, but it will not work until you have some credits. So you only need to add, I think the minimum is $5, and I've been using this one for quite some time, and like I already did a few things, and you see the consumption is not really high. So this is the only thing that you need to do. So I'm going to close this one, and I will go back to IntelliJ, and let's continue implementing our LLM analysis service. So I think at this point, everything should be up and ready. So I will start by doing this. So the first thing, I will have a private static final string, and here I will call it my system prompt. All right. So the system prompt, thank you for this. And I will use this one. I will provide it later on. But before that, before that, we need something. So we need to add a configuration or to create a configuration class. All right. So let me open the config package and right click Anthropic. So Anthropic config. So this Anthropic config, it will be a configuration, of course. So this is a configuration. And then I will have my private, so private string API key, and I will have another, so I will use the value annotation, or you can also use the configuration properties. So it will be anthropic.api key, so it will be this one. And then I will have another one, so this one should not be final, just private. And then I will have a private base URL, so private string base URL. So, and here I can use also the value annotation, and in here let's say base URL. All right. And finally we'll have a private string Anthropic version, so it's version we want to use, and we can use also the value annotation and version in here. You can also inject we can also inject the model in this way. All right. If you want to, we can also do that, or inject it in the LLM analysis service, like it works in the same way. So here I will create a bean. So this bean is my web client. So I will create a bean. So let me type and explain at the same time. So this will be my web client. And this web client is from Spring Boot Starter Web Flags, because I want to reactively communicate with Anthropic. So for that one, I need to go to pom.xml, and here you can click on Add Starters, and here you can simply search for web flags. So it's Spring Reactive Web. Once you add it, here you can make sure, or you can check it. Let's double check. So it's Spring Boot Starter Web Flags. All right. So now we can import our web client. All right. So now let's configure our web client. So web client, as I mentioned, is the web client that Anthropic will use. All right. So now we see the auto completion. Should I go with this one? Okay, let's go with it. And then we will check everything. So for our web client, what do we have? So we have the base URL, which is this.base URL. We have a default header that we need to pass, which is the XAPI key, and we need to pass the Anthropic version. And also we can add another default header, sorry, not Anthropic beta, but the content type. All right, so the content type that we would like to use. So it's going to be in a JSON format. So application/JSON. So now if I go back, or when I go back in here, I will first inject my private final web client. So I will call it Anthropic Web Client. So Anthropic Web Client. Because when I inject this bean web client, Spring will know that I already have a bean defined of type web client. So it will inject this bean with all these configurations. So I do not need to build this web client every time and provide the base URL, the API, and so on and so forth. So it will be the same bean shared for all the application. All right. So then we have a private final trend analysis repository. So this is our repository. Let's call it analysis repository because we want to save the analysis later on. And we have a private final trend topic. So trend topic repository. Let's call it trend topic repository, or simply maybe topic repository. And of course, we need to have our private final object mapper. So object mapper. All right. So now we have all the dependencies, or all what we need. And the final thing, I will use the value annotation. So it's going to be the Anthropic model. All right. So for the model, it will be a private. So it will be a private string model in here. So now what do we have? So we have few steps that we need to do. All right. And the first thing, we need to build our prompt. We need to build the user prompt. Okay, so let me explain what do I mean with this. I will come back to the system prompt later on, because I will show you the code and then I will explain the full picture. So here, final string, I will call it user prompt, and I will create a method. I will call it build prompt. All right, so build prompt out of the posts. So we pass the posts in here, and I want to build my prompt based on that. So let's keep it for now. Let's continue implementing, and then we will come back to it in few moments. So I will have a string. It will be my row response equals null. And now I will create a type of retrying mechanism, or like different attempts. Okay, so different attempts mean that if something goes wrong, or for example, if I'm not able to make the LLM analyze my request the first time, I can retry up to 3 times, for example. So it will be for int I equals 1. I will start from 1, I less or equal 3, and then I have attempts. All right, so sorry, I have my different attempts. So I will just rename this one to attempt, just to make it maybe clear for you. So now I need a try catch block. So try and catch, come on. Sorry guys, try and catch block. And in here, so I need to prepare a few things. The first one, let me comment it in here. So Anthropic, so this one, it will be the Anthropic messages API. So what do I mean in here? So system is a top level field, not inside messages. All right, so system is a top level field and not inside message. I will explain this one, what I mean. All right, not inside messages. So I will create a map of string and object, and I will call it request body. Come on, I will type everything my own. So I will call it the request body. So this is what it will be, a map.of. Come on, okay, let me break this down and see if this is what I want or not. Okay, so what do I have? So first we need to specify the model, and then there is a property which is really important, which is the max tokens. So the max tokens, let's say for example 4,000 in this case. It's a comma. So the max tokens, so this means how many tokens maximum you would like to consume. All right, so 4,000 is pretty fine. So the system property is the system prompt. So this property called system is the system prompt. All right, and then you need to provide the list of messages that you want to pass, and the list of messages, it's also like another map. So it will be the role, what is the role, and so for example the role is user, and the content, what is the content, which is our user prompt. All right, so like this is how we can communicate with Anthropic. Okay, so let me catch in here. So let's say final exception E, and then we will add some loggings, or we can add few information. So because like there is some logic we need to put in here. All right, so this is our request body. So now my row response equals this.anthropicwebclient.post. So like it should be a post request, and here I need to specify the URI. So the URI is the base URL that we already defined before, and then /messages. So this is how we communicate with Anthropic, and I think it's pretty similar with other models like ChatGPT or whatever. And here we have the body value. So body value, it's our request body, and then we have the retrieve method. All right, and then we have .body to mono because we wanted a mono, and a string. All right, so we wanted to return a string. So this is our row response. Once this is done, all I need to do is to break. All right, so like once I have the response, I need to break. Afterwards, what do I need to do? So Here we have the catch block and we have this for loop. If I break in here, nothing will happen. So like, why do we need this for loop? So now I will add a log.warn. So here, let's say, for example, anthropic attempt, and let's say this out of 3. So like, how many attempts out of 3 failed? All right. And then we can get the message. And then what do I need to do? If the attempt is less than 3, so if I did not yet reach 3 attempts, what do I need to do? I need simply to sleep, or like wait few time and then retry once again. All right, so I need just to wait few moments and then retry again, because otherwise if I do it directly in this way, so it might be blocked by Anthropic itself. So what I need to do in here, so I will add a try and catch block, and here, because I need a thread dot sleep, so I can sleep for 2 seconds, or I can wait for 2 seconds, for example. All right, so let's catch in here the interrupted exception, and then simply thread.current thread.interrupt. All right, in this case, this will ensure that we have a retry mechanism. All right, so now once everything is done, all I need to do is to check if I have my row response. So if the row response is null, I simply add a log.error, anthropic failed to response, or maybe let's say, just to become more consistent, or anthropic attempts failed to respond, for example, as you like. And then my row response equals an empty object, because it's because we need it as a JSON format in order to save it later on. So now I will create my trend analysis object. So this is the object, and I will call it analysis equals trend. So trend analysis dot builder dot build. All right. So here, what do we have? We have, if you remember, we have a row analysis. So this will be my row response, and then posts analyzed. This will be the posts dot size. All right. So like, this will be my response, or my trend analysis object. Then all I need to do, analysis equals this dot analysis repository dot save the analysis. Okay. And then I need to do some other checks. What do I need to do? So here I will have a list of trend topics. All right, so trend topic, because by the way, this trend analysis is just one thing, or a way just to track that I already made an analysis, and this is the row analysis. How many posts did I analyze? But this does not ensure that I already have something from Anthropic, okay, or from the LLM. So this is what it means in here. So let's call this one topics, and then I will create a method called parse topics, just to not to have everything in the same method. And I will pass my row response and my analysis. All right, so let's go ahead and create this method, and we will implement it in a few moments, of course, all along with the build prompt. Okay, so once we have the list of topics, so this .topic repository .save all, and then simply log.info, for example, let's say maybe saved how many trend. So let's say trend topics from analysis. So from analysis of how many posts. All right. So this will be topics dot size, and then posts dot size, and finally we need to return the analysis. What did we call it? Yes, this one, analysis. And I guess analysis it should be, or I think I put this code inside the for loop. Yes, exact. Sorry. So this code should go outside. Yep. All right. So now let's go first to the build prompt method. So building the prompt is really simple, but it's really important. All right. So let me move it a little bit up in here since it's the first method we want to implement. So what do we need to do? First, I will create a string builder. So this is my object string builder, and I will call it prompt equals new string builder. And what I want to add is the following. So for example, I will tell the LLM plus my system prompt, here are the latest posts from tech communities. All right. And then I will provide the score, I will provide few information, and then I will ask it to provide it. But before that, let me show you the system prompt because it's a bit too long, so I will not write it. I will not record while writing it, but I will write it and then I will explain it to you, and we will go through it and explain what I mentioned. And you can of course improve the prompt and let me know if this gets you better results. I would like to know, and also update it on my site. All right, so this is the system prompt. You are an AI research analyst specializing in technology trends and startup ideas. You will receive a batch of posts from Reddit, Hacker News, and Product Hunt. Analyze them and identify the top emerging trends, recurrent topics, and notable signals. For each trend you identify, respond with only a JSON array, and only uppercase really differs from only lowercase. So respond with only a JSON array, no markdown, no preamble. All right. And this is the response or the format that we want. So we want to have the topic, short topic name. We want to have the summary, 2 to 3 sentence summary of the trend, the reasoning why this is a significant and why it's trending now. Category, one of AI, machine learning, dev tools, SaaS, infrastructure, security, Web3, hardware, and others. So you can also define, this is the category that we will use, or like this is the category that we will use later on to filter. And then we have the mention count and the trend score. So that when we mention it like this, it will know that the trend score, it should go from 0 to 1. And then the primary platform, Reddit, for example, and then related post IDs. So for example, like the list of IDs. And here we define the rules. So the rules, we want to identify 5 to 10 trends maximum. The trend score is 0 to 1. 1 is extremely strong signal. And mention count, how many posts in this batch relate to this trend. So this is really important, and only include trends mentioned in 2+ posts or with very high engagement, and the score is greater than 200. Focus on emerging trends, not well-established topics, and primary platforms is where the trend is strongest. All right, so like this is our system prompt. So now we have our system prompt, and of course, as I mentioned, this is what I just got in mind. So like this is what I tried to mention for my AI agent. But you can of course improve this prompt. And as I mentioned, if you have better results, please let me know. I would like to know. So now when building our prompt, so we want to add something. So we already mentioned the system prompt, and here like it's having a chat. All right, so I will say here are the latest posts from each or from tech communities, and then what I want to do, I want to loop over the different posts that we have. So for final scraped post from for each post in scraped posts, what I want to do, so I will add a prompt dot append. So what I want to append, I want to append the first thing like the score and the comments. All right, so the score and the comments. So let's say string dot format, and in here, so this is what I want to add. So a %s just for a string, and here I will say the score is %d is the following, and I will show you what I will pass. And then we have the comments, and this is also a %d. And then, so yeah, I need to close the parentheses in here, and then %s and %n. I will show you what all this. All right. So now we need to provide the values. Okay. So the string.format, it takes the string and object values. So the first one, it's post.getPlatform. So this is the platform. All right. So this means it will be Reddit. So the score, how many comments, and then how many, and then the title. All right. So, and then post.getScore. After that, we have post.commentCount. And finally, we have post.title. So post.getTitle. Okay, so this one should be inside. All right, so like this is yeah. So this is our prompt. All right. So then once we have the prompt, let's add few things. So once we have the basic prompt, so here I will check if my post.getContent, if I have a content, because we know the content, it might be null. So if the content is not null, and okay, I am not sure what is the auto completion, but I will fix it. And if not, my post.getContent.is blank. So if the content is not null and the content is not blank. All right. So what I want to do, so let me remove this one. What I want to do, I will create a final string. I will call it snippet. So this snippet, it will take the content, substring it, or like reduce it a little bit if it's too long, and then we will append it to the prompt. All right. So like we want only to pass a snippet of the content, not the full content, to reduce the token consumption. So it will be post.getContent.length. So if the length is greater than 200, what I want to do, so it will be post.getContent and substring 0 to 200 plus 3 dots. Otherwise, it will be post.getContent. And finally, it will be prompt.append, and it will be in this way, and then .append, like greater, and then snippet and append \n just to create a new line, because we already mentioned that in our prompt. All right. So like this is how we want to pass our information, like the score is greater than this and that, and so forth. All right. And then, so finally, we just need to return the prompt.toString. So this is how we create the prompt. Now we need to parse the post. Like once we have the response, we need to parse the post. So this is the second method that we want to implement, or sorry, which is parse topics. And then we want to save them to the database. All right. So let's go ahead and start implementing this. So I will have a list of trend topic. I will call it topics, but I will initialize it to a new array list instead. So in a try-catch block, of course, like when you manipulate JSON objects or objects, you need always to surround it with a try-catch block. So I will have a JSON node, and let's call it root equals this.objectMapper.read tree, and I need to pass my row message or row response. Okay, so here, so from the anthropic response, we know that the first element is the content. Okay, so I will have a JSON node. So JSON node, I will call it content. So content array equals root.path and then content. All right. So this is my content. And then I need to check. I need to perform a check. If my content, if my content array, if it's not array, so if is array, or if it's not an array, or my content array is empty. If it's not an array, so when we try to read this element and we need to check if this is an array or this array is empty, all I need to do is to log an error. So log.error. So no topics, but no, it should not be this way, like the message, I mean. So I will say an expected anthropic response structure. response structure, because I wanted to respond only in a given or in specific structure, and return topics, which will be empty, of course. All right. So then I will have string content. So this will be my content equals content array. So content array dot get 0, and then dot path. So from the path, I want to get the text as text. Otherwise, if it's empty, if it's empty, I will return empty string, and then strip. All right. So I will strip it. And now, so we need to strip the markdown code if it is present. So if we have some markdown, we need to strip that one, in case Anthropic just returns something not well formatted. And this means what? This means if my content, sorry for this auto completion. So if my content starts with, so if it starts with this, like with this representation, this means I want to strip, sorry, why you add JSON? I did not mean JSON in here. All right, because the response, it really depends on the LLM, how it will reply, or how, like you can imagine when you have a chat with Claude or ChatGPT, and when it replies, it might reply with a JSON representation or so. All right. So if it's the case, what I will do, so content equals content dot replace first. Come on. So dot replace first, and here I will use a regex. All right, and the replacement should be empty, of course. And here I will say it should be like, I will use the tilde representation. So it should be anything. And also here, instead of JSON, I will just add something like this. So A to Z, like any character A to Z, or any character A to Z in uppercase. Okay. And then of course it applies to everything, and double backslashes N. All right. And also I will duplicate this one once again. So all I need to do here is to remove this representation, or this backticks. All right. So now if we have anything also that contains a dollar, so here I can use dollar. I want also to use the same thing. All right. So here I don't need the trim, and here I can use the strip. All right. So now I'm cleaning the response. Okay. Next, I need a JSON node object, and let's call it trans array. So trans array equals this dot object mapper dot retrieve the content. Now I'm reading the content. Okay. Of course, I need to double check if trans, if it's not an array, I simply need to return topics. I don't need to do anything. All right, because it's not an array, so I cannot perform or do what I need to do next. And then for final, I just need to loop over it. So for final JSON, come on, JSON node, let's call it node or trend or whatever. I will call it simply node. And for each node, what I want to do the following. So I want to read the different elements that I have, and then save it to my database. All right. So I have final string or final platform. I can use a platform object, and let's call it platform. Let me import this one. So here I will create a method called parse platform, or I can simply write it in here, but it will be like a try and catch block, but I would rather move it to another method. So parse platform, and then all I need to do is node.path, and here primary platform. So this is what I asked. So I know this because I already know. So let me first create this. No, do not import anything. I just want more, and here create method. All right. And here it should be a string primary platform. So from node.path primary platform, and then as text as always, otherwise empty. All right. So the parse platform is a simple method, as I mentioned. So here all I need to do is a try catch block. So return platform.value of and value the primary platform to uppercase. And here all I need to do is to catch any exception. So exception E, and here just return null. That's it. So I just didn't want to have this try and catch block in here. That's it. So now let's go back and continue to extract the different information. So then what do I have? I have a final list of string, which is the related IDs. So related IDs equals new array list, and then I will extract it from the JSON response. So it will be a JSON node as well. So let's say related node equals my node.path, and we know that it's called related post IDs. All right, so I need to make the check if the related node dot is an array. So if it is an array, not null, so then what I can do, so for final related ID node or ID, and here simply dot add ID dot as text, and I need to remove this one because I want to get it fully, and I will call this one ID as a simple or a shorter name. So now I extracted the related IDs in here. So what do I need to do next? Simply I need to save, or I need to create the trend topic. So now final trend topic, let's call it topic equals trend topic dot builder dot build. And in here, what do I need? So I have the topic, which is node.path.topic. And then we have the summary, which is also the same way summary. And we have the reasoning, which is also reasoning. And we have the category, which is also category. Like, I mean, when I say also, means that node.path.category, okay? And then we have the mention count, which is also mention count. And we have the trend score, which is also trend score. And we have the primary platform, which is our platform. And we have the sample post IDs, which is here. So I can use string.join and with a comma, like comma separated. And of course, I have the analysis, which is my analysis. All right. So finally, I need just to add the topic to the different topics. Now we need our catch block. So let's say, for example, failed to parse trend topic, and we can pass the node and the message. All right. And then after that, so what do we have to do? All I need to do is to return the list of topics. So I guess here there is a wrong one. Yeah, of course we need the catch block in here. So let's catch any type of exception. And here, for example, let's say failed to parse Anthropic response. And here we pass the row response in case something happens. All right. So in this case, we are parsing, or we parsed the response of the Anthropic response. And here, just to explain once again how I'm getting these values is simply because I know the structure, because I already defined it in the prompt in here. So I have topic, summary, reasoning, and so on and so forth, like mention count and all this stuff. All right. So now we have everything up and running. So what I will do next, so we have all the components, all the elements. Also our LLM analysis service is up and is fully implemented. All I need to do is just simply run the application, trigger, or maybe changing the cron to be triggered every minute or every 2 minutes, and then see if everything is working fine. And if we are able to scrape data, save it to the database, send it to the LLM, consume it, and so forth, and saving the trends. And once we are done with this, we can move on to the front end application. All right. So now I'm connected to my Postgres SQL. I created the database AI research agent. It's still empty. Now I will just try to start the application and see if everything is fine, which is not. So let's go ahead and check. So no property exists platform. So in script post, where did this happen? All right, so this is a typo, so it should be exists by platform. Let's try to run again. And okay, and here desk in type int. So it is this method. Yeah, makes sense. So this one, it should be find by, not find all, because this find by, it will return already a list. All right, so now I think everything should be working fine. And yes, so the application started. Let's make sure that the tables were created. So we have the posts, we have the trend analysis, and so on and so forth. So now I will simply open my scheduler class, and here I will just change it manually. All right, I will stop the application. And here, since the cron, it will be executed every 3 hours, I will just comment this out. And in here, I will use another cron. And here, let's say maybe every minute. All right. So now if I rerun the application, so let's rerun the application, and it will be executed after 30 seconds. So now let me clean everything. If my code works fine, or the code that we wrote together works fine, it should start scraping Reddit and Hacker News and persist everything to the database, send it to the LLM, having the trend analysis, the trend topics, and all what we implemented together. So this means that all the components are working fine. Otherwise, we will try to analyze and debug what is the issue in case we have an issue. All right. So it might be, for example, a typo or not able to persist the data into the database, and so forth. All right, so the scheduler did not start, and I guess I know why. Because when we have scheduling, we need to go in here or any configuration file, and we need to enable scheduling. All right, if we do not enable scheduling, Spring Boot will not pick up any scheduled jobs. All right, so let's restart the application once again, and let's wait for 30 seconds. And then we will see the result. And as I mentioned, we will check if everything is working fine. So we will get the data, and we will see the different logs as we have in here. So I'm just like trying to comment out while the next 15 seconds pass. So like with the first log, we will see search cycle started, and then we should see the different data, or the different scrapings and the other logs from the different scrapers that we already implemented. So now our scheduled task should start right now. And as you can see, so research cycle started. So this means that the scheduled job is already running. And now we should wait, and we should start seeing the different logs from the different scrapers, like Reddit, for example. Let me open Reddit once again in here. So scraper. So it should start with Reddit. So the Reddit scraper is in here, is running. And let's see, do we have logs? So Reddit scraper started, but I guess it did not, kind of. All right. I will add a breakpoint in here and restart, because it seems that something is wrong. But even before that, I will add a breakpoint. Where is it? Yeah, to this scrape all. Exact. So let's see what are the scrapers that were injected. What do we have? All right. So now let's start. So here we have two scrapers. We have the Reddit scraper, and we have also the Hacker News scraper. Let's go step by step. And here in this scrape method, I will go inside. So it started with Hacker News. Okay, so in Hacker News we do not have we do not have logs. But okay, so now we have, this is the proxy IP, as you can see. So this is the URL. And now if we fetch, what do we have? So we fetch, so we have the list of stories and a tree. And now let's try to go through them one of one. So we have the story ID, we have the external ID, and then we will try to scrape or to fetch the first item. And if this one works, I guess I will just pass it and wait for the next trigger. So I think it just takes time to fetch the story URL. So here, yeah, started scraping. All right, let's just wait a few moments. Sometimes it takes a bit long. It depends on the platform and on how it responds. So here we see that we have the storage JSON, and if we see the output, so it's exactly the same one. All right. So I will just make it finish, or I'll just give it the time to finish, because scraping might take some time from time to time, or at least it depends on the platform. But let's give it the necessary time. I will clean the console and to see the results. So I guess I will give it the time to continue, and then maybe we will check the output and we will check the results together. Because as I mentioned, maybe like Hacker News is taking a bit longer, or even what I can do, I can just move this or like comment this out. So I mean that I can remove the component annotation from here, or like service, like we can use both. So I can remove the component annotation from here and only scrape Reddit, because I know Reddit is faster than Hacker News. So like this, I guess we can see the results. All right, so now it's done, and now it moved to Reddit. So here, as you can see, for Hacker News, it scraped 29 new posts, and now it started for Reddit. So it's scraping technology, artificial intelligence, and so on and so forth. Now I guess Reddit should be done super fast. As I mentioned, like Reddit is faster than Hacker News. And now it's machine learning, and I think now it will start scraping the next one, which is, I guess, startups or something like that. And meanwhile, yes, startups. So it scraped 100 new posts, and here 125. And all right, so Anthropic is failing. So it's returning 401. All right, so I can stop this. So at least we have something. So as I mentioned, just for testing, because I don't want it to take so many time, or like really long time. So here Anthropic, it returned 401. I will just pause the video, check my API key, just to make sure that the API key is working. But even before the API key, let's go and check the Anthropic configuration. So here we have Anthropic config. So here, this is the API key, and the API key already exists. The version, it should be fine. So the Anthropic version. All right, I will just double check the API key, and then I will come back to the video. All right, so as I mentioned, the problem, it was mainly with my API key, like I made a typo. So what I did meanwhile, so for the Hacker News, I just commented this out because I don't want to scrape Hacker News, because it takes a little bit time. So here I will stop. Or so here you see the second trigger, but let's analyze the first one. So here, Reddit scraper. So we scraped the different subreddits that we mentioned, and then saved 8 trend topics from analysis of 125 posts. All right. So this was sent to the LLM. And also, as you can see, for example, in here, so for the second trigger, we found like zero new posts for some subreddits. And now it will send it again to the LLM to analyze this new scraped post. And in here, so as you can see, we saved 8 trend topics. So, and now we can go ahead and check the result. So let me just let this cycle finish, and I will stop the backend because I don't want to trigger it once again. So LLM analysis completed for 126 posts. So now let's go ahead and check the data. So the data we have here, so this is, it's all about Reddit. So where is it? The platform, it should be mentioned somewhere. Yes, so it's all Reddit, and we have the dates, and we have the different proxy IPs, and so on and so forth. So what do we have in here? So we have the different topics, the contents, and so on and so forth. And then we have the trend analysis. So here we executed two analyses, the first one and the second one. And here, this is the raw analysis, and this is what was returned by Anthropic, or by the Claude model. All right. So then what do we have? We have the trend topics. So from the trend topics, we know, for example, it was categorized in this way. So we have the category, which is AI machine learning, and it was detected this way. The mention count, it was mentioned 5 times. The primary platform is Reddit, and we have the reasoning. So why this post is important, it just says because multiple high engagement was, and like, trust me, this is not just a demo, but this is something that you can really use. And we have also some the sample post IDs, post 1, post 2, and so on, so and so forth. And we have the summary, so like measure this course around AI automation. We have the topic, which is AI driven job displacement and reskilling, and this is the score. So like I guess this is the highest one. And we have the analysis ID, of course. So we can order them or sort them by score. So we have two because it's the same, I guess, but we have two of them with the same score. We have like 8 or 9 results. All right, so now the backend is working completely fine. I guess now it's time to move to the front end and implement like a really amazing and nice UI with the full and complete dashboard. Alright, so here our AI research agent. So here we have the dashboard, we have the different component, we can see how many posts scraped, the active trends when the last analysis was, just now by default if we have nothing, how many platforms we support, how many Reddit posts, Hacker News, product hands, and also the top trends that we have in here. We see here also the trends, the scrape status, and we can scrape individually the different platforms, or we can run the full cycle. Also from the dashboard, we have here the run research cycle. So I'm going to click on it and start the scraping process. And this is gonna take some time because, as I already mentioned before, when we scrape Hacker News, and it takes a little bit time. So we will wait for it, and then we will see the output or the results of our application. So let's just wait for it. All right, so now the research is done, and here are the results. So it took some time, but now we see the final results. And as you can see, we scraped 153 posts, and we have 8 active trends. And from Reddit, we got 125, from Hacker News 28, and from Product Hunt, we got 0 posts. And here, as you can see, we have the top trends, the top 8 trends that we see in here. So for example, the first one is AI-driven job displacement and reskilling. If we click on it, it will take us to the summary, and we can see the score. So the trending signal is 92%, and we have the summary and why it is trending. And we see here that we have the related post IDs. Also, if we go to scrape status, we can see all the scraping statuses from the different platforms, or we can also filter them by platform, like Reddit, Hacker News, or Product Hunt, which is 0 for now, as we saw before. Also, if we go to trends, we can filter the trends by platform. So what are the trends from Reddit? And we can see these are all from Reddit. For example, from Hacker News, we have only one, which is among the top one. And this was scraped 3 minutes ago. And here we see that we found 3 related topics. And for example, Product Hunt, we have nothing. So for example, if we display all, we can also sort them by trending score, or the most recent, or also like the mention count. So for example, this one has the score of 88%, and it was mentioned 7 times. This one is 92%, it was mentioned 6 times, and so forth. So for example, if we order by trending score, we will see it in this way. If we go back to the dashboard, we can run another trending cycle, or also, so for example, here we see that Reddit, we have 125. If we click on it, it will navigate us to the trends, and we see that, and also automatically here it will be selected Reddit, like the platform. And also, if we go to scrape status, we can run the full cycle from here, or only, for example, I want to scrape Reddit. So this will start the Reddit scraping once again. And if we get new posts, we will see them in the dashboard, or also the list will be displayed in here, and we will see that it was scraped, for example, like 1 minute ago. So I will just give it some time to finish scraping, because it is running, and I see the logs in the backend application in the console. So it's scraping, and then once it is done, we can go to the dashboard and see if we have new posts from Reddit or not. So far, like from what I see from the logs, all of them are zero posts. So I think it will not change, or the value, it will stay always as 125. All right. So if we go back here to the dashboard, we can see, as I mentioned, it's still 125. So yeah, this is our application, and this is what we implement. And in the backend, as I explained before, we have our agent running. So we scrape the data from the different platforms or from the different data sources. And for now, we only focused on Reddit, Hacker News, and Product Hunt. And then we send all this information to an LLM. And for that, we used Anthropic, or an LLM or a model from Anthropic. And then we display all the information in this nicely looking dashboard. All right, so that was it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned from it. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you're not part of the channel. This really helps me a lot. And thank you so much. See you in the next one.